You don't need to find your voice. You already have your voice. You've been speaking in a world that stopped listening to you. This week, it isn't about volume. It isn't about how loudly you can yell. It's about clarity. It's about finally saying what has always been yours to say. Hi, my name's Steve Kidd. I am a third-generation minister, international best-selling author of 39 books and counting. I've had the amazingly wonderful privilege of working with nearly 5,000 people, helping them write, publish, market their books to bestseller, and everything that goes beyond that. And what I do more than anything else is I'm here to help you understand the power of clarity, use your voice clearly, and make the difference that you're meant to make in this world. We need to move from noise to knowing. We need to move from questioning to clarity, from promise to the purpose that each and every one of us was meant for, we were born for, that we're destined to, and that we absolutely have to. We have to live in it. Okay, and here's the thing. Harsh or real, harsh or not, it's real. And that's this. AI cannot tell you who you are. AI can reflect back to you and may even give you some insights into things that you didn't see or know about yourself. But AI can't tell you who you are. AI can't define for you who you are. Okay? AI is designed to take a look at what was and give you information from the past, from history, from what already currently exists. AI, as quote unquote creative as it is, isn't really creating. It may be immensely fast, terrifyingly fast at taking what is and recombining it in a new, imaginative, creative kind of a way. But the truth of the matter is that AI is not creating. AI is reflecting. And so when we come in and we put out our signature talk, we do a blog post, we whatever. I mean, forget about M dashes. Okay, and I mean, an M dash may be a real sign of the fact that, you ran or you used AI in some kind of a way with what you're doing. Absolutely. Okay, but the thing about it is what we really should be looking at is the clarity of the content and is the effectiveness of the content. You see, if you spend the time to really know who you are, to create that powerful you data set, then you can feed that into AI and it can give you some amazing things. The problem is that there really is nobody that's teaching knowing you. There are a lot of people I know that are teaching, it's all about the power of your data set and you need a good data set and ways of going out and exploring and searching and using AI tools to explore and search. And you can get some great information. You can, for example, use something like Poppy AI or the new eugenics AI that they just brought out. And you can bring in a ton of videos. You can just pour it in a whole bunch of, and you can even, before that, you could use Grok or ChatGPT or Perplexity. A couple others that come to my mind, but those would probably be the top three for asking it to do deep research and to find for you specifically the viral, a bunch of viral videos, and then have them investigate it and share with you what are the commonalities between that. Okay, because that's looking at existing information and finding commonalities. Doesn't necessarily mean that that's the magic bullet, that if you find out that there's 3,000, and it would take you a long time if you're looking at 3,000, okay, but let's just use that massive number. Find that there's 3,000 videos out there, and every single one of them, what we find is they have this in common. This is what the thumbnail looks like, if we're talking YouTube videos, or this is what the first hook words in it are, all of those kind of things. And you can get that data. And the more information you put into the data set, So in other words, if you're doing 3,000 videos versus 3 videos, you may have your 3 favorite videos. You may even know somebody that, has done 3 or 4 videos that went to the 10, 20, 30 million views. But the truth of it is those could just as easily be outliers. I'm in a group, and we're actually looking at a person who their average number of views was about 10,000 per each reel that they're putting out. This was specifically on Instagram, about 10,000. Every once in a while, they'd peak up to 12 or maybe even 15, but pretty well right standard on average, 10,000. Okay. And then in the middle of that, they had a video here just recently. It was like 3 or 4 back that had 1 million views. Okay. Wow. Cool. But was that intentional? Is that repeatable? Can he have the next 5 videos he does hit 500,000 to 1 million or several million views? And the same would be true even with some of your big gurus. Now you can get people, like for example, right now, if you look at a video that has the name Charlie Kirk in it, okay? I even saw one, I thought it was kind of funny, all the reasons why Charlie Kirk is a racist, and then it went on for like 20 minutes showing Charlie Kirk being anything but a racist. But they used that because they knew that it was going to be, eye-catching and get the eyeballs in. Okay. They knew they were going to get the people that were totally Charlie Kirk supporters that were going to be like, and they knew they were going to get the people that were totally Charlie Kirk haters because they'd be like, yes, I finally am going to have the information, and so that kind of thing works. Again, though, that can be a one-off. And, that video was about 2 weeks ago. If you do that video 2 weeks from now, it's going to fall pretty flat. People are going to be like, why are you still talking about Charlie Kirk? Now, there's a bit of a movement behind that, so that's not completely true. But, you need to know the difference between the trend and the real, true underlying thread in there. Okay? But even when you have all that information, and even when you've put in 1,000 videos in a data set, and you found that thread, that still doesn't tell you who you are. And that's where we make the mistake. We fall into the being lost because I'm just thinking of the right way to say this to you in a way that's kind and loving and not harsh and cruel. Bear with me for a second. It isn't lost, but it is. And here's the reason why. Okay? You're trying to allow everything else in the world except for your heart, your soul, the real heart and soul and core of who you are, define you for you. Okay, now defining yourself is the deep work. It's the hard work. And it's the work, let's be honest, probably only 1% of the people in the world will ever do. All right. There's an age-old concept. All right. There's the 80-20 rule. And you will find, if you ever have to guess at a statistic, it's going to fit into the 80-20 rule. Okay. 80%, and this is generically speaking, but it's amazing to see how much it works out. About 80% of people, follow the crowd. They're just, in it for, that's why, that's why when a particular trend is, you have a whole bunch of people that are talking about that thing. That's why, you can put out a post and you can hear somebody else, and it may not necessarily be that they stole yours. And it may be that both of you are listening to the same person and both of you are like, ooh, that's a good idea. I want to do that. All right. 80%. 20% are the ones that are, a little bit more unique, more creative. All right. What you find, though, is inside of the 80-20, okay, there's another 80-20. So about 80% of that 20, okay, when we look at, for example, statistics for things like that, you find that about 80% of, and I'll use something that I know, 80% of salespeople are average at best, and we won't get into the definition for it. Whereas the other 20% are in the above average category. Well, when you get deeper into that, you go back and that 20% has an 80-20 inside of it. What does that mean? That means that you're going to end up at about approximately, you're going to be at approximately 94% of people. Okay, so 80% are at average, 14 more percent are, at above average, and then you have that about 6% that are really exceptional. And I take that back. I think it's actually 96. Yeah, 96. So you have that 4% that are really exceptional. Okay. And you could break that one down again and find out that actually there's another 80-20 inside of there. And the same thing ends up, it's really fun to watch that statistic over the course of my whole life, because it's been cool to see it kind of come real. And you find out that inside of that 4%, there's about 1%, which is essentially, again, 80%. It's technically 75 if you want to get finicky on math. Okay. But, and so if we go back to, say, for example, our statistic on, the average person surfing a social media, about 90% of them. So it's a little higher than 80%. But that makes sense, really, because really there's about 10% of that 90, so about 1 out of every 10 that are a little bit more than just total haphazard. They don't comment at all. They're the more like random commenters. Every once in a while, they'll make a comment, or they only would comment on their child's thing. Okay. But you basically have that 90%. And then you have 9% that are the people that, like and do some commenting. And then you have 1% who are the ones that are actually creating, actually making new content. All right. The same thing becomes true when you look at, say, for example, books. An area that I'm very familiar with. In fact, that one ends up being more in that 90-10 realm too, because you find out that, and it's okay, statistically speaking, I love this, 80% of the people you'll ever meet in the world say they want to write a book. Okay, less than 5% ever do. All right, so that's that 80-20 rule falling in again. So you have 80% that say they want to. You have, out of that, you have, again, another 20% that actually end up doing it. Okay. And that would actually be 16. And so do you see what I'm saying, though? I mean, I'm getting you lost in statistics, and that's not the direction I intended to go. I want you to understand that you can only be you when you allow yourself, or even encourage yourself, to move into that 1%. And I went a little bit too deep into statistics. Sorry for my Excel spreadsheet brain. I should have probably, worded that a little better for you. But I hope that you get the concept out of it, because most everyone in the world, not the 80 inside of that 20, but really that 1%, are going to be the ones who are going to spend the time. Have you ever looked at your favorite coach, or the person that you're totally green with envy over because of how great things are going for them, as opposed to what you're doing, even though maybe you both started out in the gate at the same place, and now they're stratospherically ahead of you? And it's easy for us as human beings to get jealous of that person and be like, oh man, I wish I was where they were. There's lots of reasons why, and some of those probably are not the things we beat ourselves up over. There may be more real world things and situations you went through that they didn't. It could be as simple as, you went through a divorce and they didn't. And the total upheaval, that the difficulty of the relationship before the divorce, and then the post-divorce created. Yes, I'm talking about myself in that particular instance. And most of the examples I use are. What we find, though, is it's not about screaming louder. It's not about posting. I love Gary Vee. Okay, I dig his stuff, and I don't want to be dissonant with him, but I'm going to mildly disagree with what he says. Because Gary Vee would encourage you these days to post 60 to 100 times minimum every day. And that's cross-platform. So that would be, if you're talking 60, that would be picking about 10 social medias and posting 6 times. Or picking 6 social medias and posting 10 times. And you could do that. You could keep up with that. There's a lot of AI tools now that will allow you to just post. Okay? Here's the problem. Especially when we start going at that level of volume, especially if we're doing it ourselves, or even if you just have a small team that's helping you do it. It's going to be kind of hit and miss to begin with. But additionally to that, it's really hard to get that clarity in there. But more importantly than that is, if it doesn't start in clarity, it's not going to end up there. Yes, clarity is going to come, and I know I've said this a million times, from when you're moving. But the clarity is, wow, I'm off on that. I'll give you a perfect example. Okay, I've pivoted mildly. You probably won't totally notice it. You might if you're really, really watching. Because in doing some reviews of the last several months that I've been doing this, I realized that I was giving you vitamins when what you really needed was antibiotics. I was giving you motivation when you really need medicine. That doesn't mean that I have to be harsh. I hope you perceive me as a very kind, gentle, loving type of person. And most of the time I am. I mean, I get my rear up just like everybody else does, okay? But for the most part, that's the space I try to stay in. So it's not that I'm going to be cruel to you. In fact, I'll probably Mary Poppins you and give you a spoonful of sugar to help the medicine go down. But we need the medicine. We need to understand why the things aren't working. AI cannot tell you who you are. Your boss can't tell you who you are. Your spouse can't tell you who you are. If you don't define who you are, I promise you there is somebody in this world that's more than willing to tell you who you are. That won't really actually make you that. It'll make you miserable is what it'll make you. Because you'll be at odds with the very core of who you are, and you won't even know why. Because you may even be extremely happy. I'll use relationships because it's the perfect example to show this. You take the young person, doesn't matter whether they're a boy or a girl, that has not defined themselves, and they go out into the world and they meet somebody and there's an attraction. And yes, I'm talking physical attraction in this case. And they want to get to know that person more, but they haven't defined themselves. And so as they get to know that person more, they begin to take on that person's things that they have defined themselves or things that they've decided they want in their life, even if they're not really totally in definition of themselves. Most everybody you meet is more than willing to tell you how you should be, even when their life's a total chaotic mess. I love it when, and I try to stay out of this place because it makes me laugh when I hear other people do it. I love it when people who have been through multiple failed marriages are giving marriage advice. My parents, back in the day, back when I was a teen, went to a therapist, to a counselor for marriage counseling that was divorced. I laughed. I find it hilarious. And I'm not saying that sometimes the best comes out of the mistakes we made, and that person may have very well been there. But a lot of times we reach out in our own need for healing, and we try to heal everybody else rather than healing ourselves first. And so that person, whether they're well-defined or not, they have a very clear definition of how they're going to, make the person that's allowed in their world to be. And they begin to shape and mold that young individual that's come into their life. And that individual is falling deeper and deeper and more madly in love with them. And so as they say, this is the things we want to do. This is the church we do go to, or we don't believe in this church. This is the sexual orientation that we have. This is the every single issue. And I'm not standing on the side of any of those particular issues. But I will, and this is going to be the hard medicine, okay? And I'll try to give you some sugar afterwards. But I will tell you, you need to understand and know why you believe the things you believe. And you need to take a moment and ask yourself, is that belief based out of my own gut, my own life, my own best, and my own experiences? Or is that something that over time was actually given to me? Now, in some of those cases, it's going to be hard to really root that out, because you may have been being programmed for that literally since birth. Because a lot of times we as parents totally F up, okay? Let's just put it right out there where it is. We see this beautiful little baby and we want only the best for them. And so we decide, before we ever get to know them, before they ever grow, your brain isn't even fully developed until you're 25. And we tell them all these things. Now, one of two things happens. That baby conforms and it becomes that thing that we've told them they should be, or that baby rebels and they become the opposite of what we told them they should be. Neither of those is really truly understanding who the person is. I know I've gone so super deep today, and I hadn't intended to, though Sundays do tend to go that way anyway. So maybe you're up for it. If you're actually listening to, this is Steve Sunday, and he's going to go deep because Steve goes deep on Sundays. So it's not a matter of how many times can you post today. It's a matter of how many times, or can you, let me rephrase that. It's not a matter of how many times you post today. It's a matter of how clear can you be today of who you clearly are. See, you need to spend the time. You need to get to know that you that is you. You need to invest in reconnecting with the core message of who you are and what you're really meant to say and do, so that you can then share it. Okay, when you're in that space, it flows. And half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour can go by. You've seen enough of my lives now that you know the times that I'm just in my zone. And when I'm just in my zone, poof, 45 minutes, an hour has gone by. There's other days like today where, I am in the midst of this pivot, and I'm, taking my own medicine, because I haven't been giving you opportunity to be able to latch a hold of anything. I've been giving you great information with nothing to attach to or know why behind it, because that's kind of who I am. And I know that you need me to be fully 100 me and help you understand why. Because a person will do anything if they understand deeply and they resonate with the why. But if a person doesn't know why, they may never be willing to do the thing. We want to go deep, and that starts with us. And I'm modeling it for you every day, have been since, May or June or whatever it was when we started off on this. And I'm going to continue doing that. I am. I'm going to get clearer and clearer, and I'm going to encourage you every day. Clarity is powerful. You need to spend the time. We don't want to help you sound smart. We want you to sound real. We want the real, total, just complete who you are. That why that's underneath of the things we're passionate about, that then gets honed into your purpose. Not what I tell you my purpose for you is, but your purpose. That's a discovery journey. That's a discovery journey that you need somebody to help lead you through. The reason why therapy works is not because a therapist just comes in and tells you, do X, Y, Z, and you'll be all better. The therapy works when a therapist can allow you to bring out your stuff and work through it and discover the path. Now that starts with you just speaking it out. And that's why I always say the first step to clarity is you got to get the car moving. You need to do the thing. The second step is getting the help. Having somebody mirror back, did you mean to say it that way? What about this? And ask you the kind of questions that set you up to be able to dig deeper into you. It's not about me directing who you are and telling you, well, this is what you are. It's about me helping you. Yes, there are some really cool AI tools when put together right, can help you go on a discovery journey. But it's to discover the you that's in you, because AI doesn't know it. AI can ask you some extremely insightful questions and can use all of the past of human history and say, based on all of human history, this is what I think. But the end piece of that is, how does that resonate with you? Don't think it, what do you feel? I had a friend of mine, one of my coaches actually say that to me just a week ago. Not what do you think is right, how do you feel? What do you feel in your gut you should be doing? That's a powerful shift. Really powerful shift. Does that make sense to you? I hope it does. I really, really do. Because I want you to be able to really, truly show up. First for you, and then also for all the people that you're meant to serve. When you speak from truth, everything's going to start to work. And as long as we're chasing other people's definitions of us, it'll never really totally resonate. I know that feeling all too well. And I've done it for so many years. And even as I work my way through it, let's work it together. Because I do know, and I've done it so many times to help people find their clarity. I want to help you find yours. And I want to model to you the clarity journey, because you're always going to continue peeling back the layers. And no matter how many layers deep you go, there's always more layers. And you'll get to the core of you, and then you'll find that in the core of you, there's even more layers to peel back. And you'll get deeper and deeper and better and better. And each time you do that, reality will resound even more so. Because we're not trying to necessarily, or at the very least, we're not worrying about whether or not 10 million people see our post. We're concerned about that one person getting what they need. And I'm concerned today about just you. I want you to be visible and valuable. I created the group. It's called Visibility Amplifier. Come join us, visibilityamplifier.com. It's a place for you to be safe, to go on that journey, to practice on that journey, to explore on that journey, and yes, to get the outside help that we absolutely do need to help us not find their clarity, not have AI do a research on all of human history to give you an idea of maybe this, or better or worse yet, have AI tell you who you are, but to simply help you discover and know and then live in who you are. You don't need to find your voice. You just need to stop silencing it. You need to just take the steps. Come join us, visibilityamplifier.com. We're there for you, and we look forward to having you with us. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about why your message isn't landing and what nobody tells you about it. I'm looking forward to bringing that to you. I hope until we're together again next time, you're happy, safe, you're warmly loved, and that you have a great week.